Time to climb to the top of the fantasy mountain is running short. It's time for a fantasy hockey GM under the hood look for the buy low, sell high targets that you could use to take your team to that number one spot on the latest episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're getting creative, baby, because we got to get this paper. Let's tap in and do just that.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fantasy playoffs are looming, and you're tapped right back into your 30-minute source to build that fantasy hockey winner. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Monday through Friday, we're saluting and showing love to the everydayers, making us your first listen every single day. We see and appreciate y'all. We couldn't be doing the pod without the support of all of our listeners out there. So much love for tapping in every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Steele, we're going to get to big time bets, of course, 5-game betting board on Friday night slate. However, buy low, sell high targets. This is an angle that all fantasy GMs have to consider at some point in the season, and why not now? Because seriously, if you're still within striking distance, you're lurking around for perhaps one of those last playoff spots, you really are running out of time, and you're going to have to get creative. So I think getting away from some of these players in a sell-high situation, getting some value back, or buying low on some guys that still have some value could be very, very worthwhile angles to pursue. So why don't we start at it? Wherever you want to go. Sell high targets. Talk to me. You and I are looking at some of the same players, but that's okay. Who are you looking at and why?
Yeah, let's start with the sell high targets. And number one guy that came to my mind is Tom Wilson. I think this is a player that goes very underappreciated for what he does in the fantasy hockey realm, even in the National Hockey League. And, I just have to show some love to this guy, not because I have personal stake in his value with him being on two of my fantasy hockey teams, but he's having a great season. You go back to 2021 where he finished with a career high 52 points. He's on pace to do just that this season, 39 points in 53 games. He's got a career high shooting percentage this year with 18.5 plus 13. The thing that I really like about it is the peripheral stats as well. I am a big peripheral stats guy because I love the categorical formats for fantasy hockey leagues. His penalty minutes are down, but he still has 50 on the year, which is great to see. 154 hits and climbing, 51 blocks, 119 shots, on pace to beat his career high of 169 last year. So I really like what he's able to do with his game. 30 years old, soon to be 31 years old. He's gotten better over time. This Washington Capitals team is just different from what we saw last year. And like you said, all season long, or like you have been saying all season long, you want to get a piece of the best hockey teams in the NHL right now. The Winnipeg Jets, the Washington Capitals, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Florida Panthers, the Dallas Stars. Even you want to get a piece of some of their players, and Tom Wilson for me is one of those guys. So I like what he does. He's on the first power play unit. He's on the first line with Dylan Strome and Alexander Ovechkin.
Love that.
He's on the second penalty kill as well. He's actually getting the most amount of average time on ice in his career with just under 19 minutes this season. So I think Tom Wilson fits perfectly into this category of sell high because there's a lot of value. I know a lot of people are not going to put value on his name, but he does bring it on a nightly basis. And the fact that he's staying disciplined, he hasn't suffered any injuries, which have hindered him in the past. No suspensions this year. He's playing a smart, clean game this season. I like what he's bringing to the table for this Washington Capitals team. And he's been a huge part of their success as well, on top of the other guys that have been playing great.
Yeah, I think he falls perfectly into sell high for me, Steele. I actually kind of look at this situation as if you were to perhaps go out there and try and sell this guy off to bring in some value. Not every season is year to year. That's the other thing I wanted to bring in. Buy low, sell high. These are good angles to consider if you're a keeper dynasty GM out there and you're trying to position yourself for next season. This year might be out the window, but a guy like Tom Wilson, who, let's be honest, this is where I feel it fits sell high the most, is he hasn't played 82 games since 2017. Injuries have been a real serious issue for this player. And when you talk about what he's been able to do over the last few seasons in terms of output and production of points, getting 39 through 53 games is going to be somewhat hard for this player to replicate given how rough and tumble his game has been. So if you're looking at a guy in Tom Wilson that you can perhaps ship out for a young piece and maybe a prospect, or you package him together with another player, this is this prototypical sell high spot, just because I don't know, given everything that's happened in his career, and yeah, 30 years old is 30 years old, how many more seasons of full 82 games, 50 plus points that he's currently on pace for that he has left in the tank. So sell high, most definitely. He was the guy I was looking at, but I had a backup just so we can spread this around. Neil Pionk on the Winnipeg Jets. I look at it twofold. Previously in his career, topping out at 45 points in 71 games. This season, 36 points in 55 games, going to far surpass what he's been doing over the last couple of years. And it's twofold here with Pionk, why I think you sell him off now and you get a sexy little younger piece. This is a contract year for him. He is playing for that bag. This is his big payday moment in his career, and he's overachieving a little bit, Steele. There's nothing to be said about that in a negative way other than get your value for this player now. This one jumps off the page for me. 85 hits, 88 hits, 85 block shots, somewhat down on the hit side of things compared to what he did last year, 221 hits. So those peripherals are actually down a bit, which is why the offense has been able to go. So the other angle, Steele, is this Winnipeg Jets team is good, but are they this good? Are they going to be running the table on the NHL for the next couple of seasons? I don't think so. So I think you can really get a ton of value for a guy in Pionk who, one, I think is overachieving in a contract year, and two, a Winnipeg Jets team that might be playing a little bit punching above its weight class. Good team, but they're not the best team in the NHL. So I think those two things there you could play into, getting a ton of value back for a guy in Pionk right now that's been valuable. But next season, I just don't see it happening again. So why not get away from him now when you can get some value? That's how I'm looking at this one.
That's a very good point. And I think, once again, this player has definitely gone overlooked in the sense of what he does in all aspects of the game. 221 hits and 115 blocks last year with 146 shots. Like you said, has taken a little bit of a step back with that aspect of his game to focus a little bit more on the offensive side, which he has accomplished this year, and on pace to break his career high of 44 points. Of what was 45. It? 45 points back in 2019 season. Penalty minutes 36 on the year. He's been a perennial 35-point player his entire life.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. The question is, can he replicate this? Like I always like to say, a lot of players age like fine wine in this league, and he's 29 years old. I still think he's just in his, he's in his prime right now. Once he gets to 31, 32, we might see a little bit of a regression, but right now, why not sell high on Neil Pionk if you can get a good return? Again, it's hard to sell guys with the name Wilson and Pionk or in that caliber, because a lot of people don't want to put the value unless you have a sexy name out there like Mikko Rantanen or Nathan McKinnon, Jason Robertson, Tage Thompson. It just doesn't happen for these guys. So it's hard to sometimes get that value, but there's value to be had. So I think if you have them, sell high on these players that we just mentioned, Tom Wilson, Neil Pionk. And if you're out there and wanting some of these players to fill out those peripheral categories, there's opportunity to maybe have that advantage in your favor, because if you put the value on the name.
This has got to be an angle that's considered right now, Steele.
Yeah.
Whether you're, like I said, whether you're in that keeper dynasty realm and you're trying to position yourself, this year could be out. But next year, the following years, build for it. Or you're a GM on the bubble and you're seriously running out of time. This isn't just lip service. This is what you got to be considering. So we'll take a look at our buy low fantasy targets coming up after the break. Big time bets at the end of the episode. I've got a couple of keeper dynasty angles to cover here as well, Steele. You know me. Got to pay those bills, baby, on the keeper side of things. We'll get to it right after the break. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. You need tickets for your next big event, concerts, comedy, sports, Find the right ticket at the right price can be a headache on other apps, but with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Their new Game Time Picks right now, while we're loving it, the curated deals that make getting tickets super simple. No more sifting through thousands of options. The best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. You find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed with Game Time.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Flip and I can't thank you enough for all that love and support you've been showing us. Make sure you share with your friends and family out there. We're very close to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you can help us reach our goal, it would mean the world to us. Thank you so much once again. We really do appreciate it. 7 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday is when you can find our episodes. It's funny that we're talking about sell high targets and buy low targets, especially with these two next buy low targets, because we kind of just ripped them to shreds on last week's episode about being some of the biggest disappointments in the Eastern Conference and fantasy, league wide right now.
Yeah.
But this is a good opportunity to buy low on them because of these certain situations for both Mika Zibanejad and Jeremy Swayman. So I'll throw it over to you first.
Sure.
I know you got Jeremy Swayman, and there's definitely value to be had with this player, especially with this tight race that the Bruins are finding themselves in for the wild card spot even.
I think I need to be clear. The Boston Bruins, in my opinion, don't have what it takes to really make noise in the postseason and go on a prolonged run. That has nothing to do with Jeremy Swayman and everything to do with the lack of depth up the middle and in their, let's say, bottom 9 forward group. After the top line, they don't have enough firepower to go toe-to-toe with the teams, let alone in their own division. But the Caps, Canes, Devils, and then don't even get me started on the Western Conference. That doesn't mean, though, there isn't value to be had here in a team that I think will still very much play 500 hockey down the stretch and still hover around for a wild card spot. So to me, a number one goaltender, a goaltender who's still, let's be clear, a lot going on in Boston this year off the ice, contract negotiations with Swayman, public call-outs, the Linus Ullmark angle, lots going on. Could almost predict a regression a little bit with Jeremy Swayman. This is a guy that I'm not giving up on. And how about this? Over the last 8 games played for Swayman, 5-2-1 with a .915 save percentage and a shutty. He's played pretty good for the most part. And for me, he jumps off the page as a buy low target. I want Swayman all day long in the keeper dynasty side of things. This is a goaltender who's come into the NHL and been nothing but lights out. .915 save percentage over 171 games. And that's including this year with a save percentage of .898 dragging it down. He is for real. He is a Vezina Trophy threat, in my opinion, when he's on his game. And if you can get him for cheaps because of everything that's gone on going against his value and Boston this year, I say go out there and get him big time. This guy is a bona fide number one fantasy goaltender when on his game. And I think next year you'll see him return to that form. He prototypical fits the buy low mold, and I want a piece of him now for cheaps before that value goes back up.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, a big reason, losing his buddy and Linus Ullmark, like you said, the center depth and just the overall team in front of him is completely different from what it was just last year. Speaking of keeper dynasty, he's 26 years old. Definitely a guy that, if you're willing to keep a goaltender, he's one of those good targets right now. Igor Shesterkin, Jake Ottinger in the same likes. It's funny enough that we talk about keeper dynasty and keeping him because he actually was just traded in my keeper fantasy league.
There you go.
And this is what the deal was: Jeremy Swayman and Mason Marchment, and in return, the other team got Anthony Stolarz and Chris Tanev. So kind of a lopsided deal, in my opinion. It's actually Anthony Stolarz has just come back. He did play last night against the Seattle Kraken, first game since the injury in early December. But yeah, interesting to see that deal.
I love that move for the guy getting Swayman, by the way.
Yeah, Jeremy Swayman. Yeah, you're getting Jeremy Swayman and Mason Marchment, who just returned from injury as well. And then the other team gets Anthony Stolarz and Chris Tanev. I will say the team that has that just got Stolars and Tanev in this deal, his team's really, really good. And he actually just traded for Igor Shesterkin. So I guess he didn't really need Jeremy Swayman. It's funny, he has Igor Shesterkin, Anthony Stolars, Jacob Markstrom, and Jake Ottinger. So his goalie stats are really stacked up right now. And adding adding Anthony Stolars is just, really good in that opinion. But for this team, getting Jeremy Swayman and Mason Marchment, a really good trade.
Most definitely. Hey, that's them following this approach. I think that's a perfect example of packaging some players together to get yourself a little bit of a leg up, especially if you're setting up for next season. Zibanejad, Rangers. Lots of very intriguing things going on with this team. JT Miller back in the lineup still. We know, I believe, when they were first deploying JT Miller, and I think I'm going to bring it up, I believe he was playing with Zibanejad on that wing. Panarin, Miller, Zibanejad. Lots to love there. And we were saying perhaps a couple of days ago that Zibanejad would be someone that you might want to go out there and take a risk on. Now, for sure, have a shot.
Yeah, Mika Zibanejad has probably been the most frustrating player to me all season. I've put a lot of value into him and a lot of different fantasy hockey teams, and really just hasn't lived up to what I expected him out of this year. He was actually one of my keepers going into this season. And I really do think after this JT Miller trade, we're seeing a new chapter of the New York Rangers. Now, I'm not saying they will make the playoffs and they'll go on a deep run now, but I think the fact that JT Miller is in a situation where he's not surrounded by a lot of young players, he's in the likes of Artemi Panarin, Vincent Trocheck, Mika Zibanejad, all these guys in the top six forward group who are around the same age as him and, can respond to him correctly. We've heard rumors about the heated nature of his competitiveness. And I just think it works well for both JT Miller and Mika Zibanejad. And we've already seen it in the first 3 games that JT Miller's been back in New York. We talked about it. He has 6 points in his last 3 games since moving to the right wing on that first line with Panarin and JT Miller. So I think, as much as I have been really disappointed in him this season and frustrated with his overall production, this is a page turning for me for Mika Zibanejad. 35 points in 53 games on the season, a career low so far of minus 24 on the plus minus category. The shots are down. This is the first season since his rookie year in shooting percentage where he's been below 10%. So it's been a very tough season, frustrating year for fantasy owners out there, for Mika Zibanejad personally, Rangers fans, of course. The peripherals are down, but I think for the second half of the season, getting paired up with JT Miller is really going to change both their games and their attitudes moving forward.
New York Rangers, 56 points, currently sit 4 points adrift of Tampa for that second wild card spot. They are 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. Miller's best friends with Trocheck. He fits into the mold so nicely in New York.
Grew up together.
Is one piece going to resurrect a nightmare season? Probably not. But if it's one piece that's going to do it, it's going to be a guy that's played in New York. It's a guy that's badly wanted a fresh start. The New York Rangers needed some good news off ice to turn the page as well, with all the Trouba, all the Chris Drury off ice madness. Maybe this is just one of those things, Steele, that happen in sports, that just ahead of that playoff push, good things start happening. You're right. Too hard to go out there and say this is all they need to go on a run. But if Shesterkin comes back healthy and this team starts to string together W's, why not them? They have all of the pieces to do it. And right now, that's meaning intriguing fantasy value. I've got a couple of angles that I'm ready to talk about for big time bets coming up around the break. Steele and I will be back for a Saturday special covering all the news from around the league that's impacting your ability to build a winner. Monday, waiver wire targets running out of time, Steele, but we're here. We're here every single day trying to get you to the top.
I got a big angle for big time bets as well, alluding to that New York Rangers game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm liking this Friday night big time bet board. That is coming up next after the break. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. If you missed it in the first segment, we really appreciate all the love and support you've been sending our way. YouTube comments, the likes, the opinions and feedback on Twitter as well, or X. We just really love all the conversations we've been able to have with all of our listeners out there. So thank you
Yes,
so much
sir.
for the support. Couldn't be doing this without all of you out there. That's why we do what we do, especially at the end of every single episode with big time bets, trying to make everyone who tunes in a little bit of extra cash on the side with some of these picks we have in the National Hockey League. Over to you, my friend. Where you looking first? How you feeling about Friday night?
I like these games, but lately I've been not liking the board and doing okay with my picks. So it's like when you go into one of those exams, Steele, and you feel like you crushed it and you come out of there with a 71 and you're like, what? And then you come out of an exam that you think you totally bombed and you nail it. I got those vibes coming tonight, so I don't know what that means.
Oh,
but here we go. First pick, Connor Bedard, anytime assist. Nashville rolling into town. Chicago playing pretty good. They actually played really well against the Edmonton Oilers the other night. And Connor Bedard has been kind of at the center point of that. Up to 31 assists, had 1 assist against the Edmonton Oilers, and that's where I'm going. In his career, 6 games played against the Nashville Predators, 2 goals, 3 assists. Hit me with Connor Bedard, anytime assist. This is a little bit of a gut pick considering how bad the Nashville Predators have been over their last 5 or 6 games. I believe they've dropped 5 in a row by pretty convincing fashion. So this is a good spot for the Chicago Blackhawks to, I don't know if they're going to get the dub, but to, at least put up some production offensively. Bedard at home in a good spot, anytime assist. That's my first pick.
I like the anytime assist. I actually like the Blackhawks on the money line at home in this situation against the Predators. I'm not taking them, but I think the Blackhawks at home playing some decent hockey, getting some good goaltending from Soderblom and Razik, whoever's been in the cage,
not
decent
bad.
at least, and you're getting plus 136, 140, somewhere around there. I'd be fine taking them at that. Again, it's not in my top 3, but I do like the Connor Bedard anytime assist, especially since it banged out for you the other night. My first 2 picks come from the same game. I'm looking at this Rangers-Penguins matchup. Rangers first pick on the puck line at plus 118.
Okay.
The Rangers are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. The Penguins really struggle against them, and Sidney Crosby seems to be dealing with an injury to his left arm. Practice. He started skating by himself. No shooting drills. Was passing and skating, those type of situations right there. But he seems to have a lingering injury right now. I don't know if he'll be in this game, but even if he is, I think there's going to be some difficulty for the Penguins, especially Malkin still being out, a couple of trades going out as well. I really like what the Rangers have been able to do in their last 10. Like you said, 6-3-1 in their last 10, 7-2-1 in their last 10 against the Penguins. And I'm adding on top of that Adam Fox 2+ points. You could take it down if the 1+ point or the one anytime assist is at a plus money as well. I'll be fine taking that. I just want to juice up the odds a little bit. I still think Adam Fox, I think you're going to get a very good odds. So you actually might want to check out the anytime assist or anytime point. But only has 2 points in his last 5 games, both of them being assists. I think there's still a lot that can be seen with Adam Fox, especially on the power play, quarterbacking and facilitating from his own zone and working it way up into the offensive zone. So I really like those 2 picks right there, Rangers puck line and Adam Fox 2+ points.
Plays right into what we were just talking about, like clockwork, baby. Love it. 2 picks, Steele. A team that I am not backing off of now, the Edmonton Oilers at home, money line. I know the Colorado Avalanche are 6-3-1 against the Edmonton Oilers head-to-head over their last 10. I also understand that the Colorado Avalanche have shut out opponents, back-to-back wins. That was Philly and St. Louis, and then they got shut out themselves to Vancouver. So I'm not exactly ready to just sing this team's praises. Are they, I think, a little bit more complete with the Blackwood-Wedgwood tandem? Losing Mikko Rantanen is still losing Mikko Rantanen. Marty Necas coming in. I understand that's worked out well so far. I can't help but say this team's a bit of an enigma for me, the Colorado Avalanche, whereas I'm much more confident in the Edmonton Oilers. And I know they just beat St. Louis and Chicago, and not a lot to write home about that one. But this is just a gut pick for me once again. This is the better team in my opinion, and I've been saying it since the second half started. I'm waiting for a prolonged heater here for the Edmonton Oilers. They've either won their last 5 games or they've dropped a 1-goal game over their last 10. It's either been a win or a 1-goal loss. So this team is playing good hockey. I'm ready for them to explode. Oilers at home in a good spot on the money line. And here's by far my favorite pick of the night. I'm going to tease it up to 6.5 because I'm going to add this into my favorite parlay of the night and thank me later. but the New York Islanders Winnipeg Jets is just screaming playoff-like atmosphere, tight checking, low scoring, goalie battle, whatever you want to put on it. It's going under. I'm going to take 6.5 so I don't look like a complete idiot. I'm going to go 6.5 and ride the under, and let me throw a few stats at you here. And if you don't like it, how about Connor Hellebuck in the cage, 33-7-2. Up there in the NHL with save percentage at .925. Leading the league with 6 shutties, 2.04 goals against average. And then on the other side of the coin, you got Sorokin. In his last 9 games, 8-1-0, 952 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. This guy has allowed 1 or 2 or none goals in 8 of 9 starts. He's absolutely locked in. Not many teams playing as good hockey as the Islanders as well, other than the Winnipeg Jets. This is a beauty of a game tonight, Steele, and I think you're going to see a little bit of a measurement type situation here for the New York Islanders. They're going to know real quick going up against the Winnipeg Jets if this is a for real heater or if it's a flash in the pan, if you know what I'm saying. So I think you'll see the most out of Patty Waugh's club. Hit me with the under 6.5 as my lock of the night. 2 of the hottest teams in the league, 2 of the hottest goaltenders in the league that are lights out. I don't need to say much more. Hit me with the under in that one.
I pretty much don't even have to say anything because you took all the words right out of my mouth. Boom. It is absolutely insane how in sync we have been this last week with our picks and some of these players we want to talk about. I am right there with you. Lock of the night, Jets, Islanders. I'm actually going to take the under 5.5 because I'm that confident in it going under the number. And for all the reasons you said, 7 of the last 10 between these two teams have gone under the number.
Boom.
Sorokin, 7 straight wins. Hasn't allowed more than 2 goals in any of the last 7. Mm-hmm. And then you go over to Connor Hellebuck, probably the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. Mm-hmm. Hellebuck also has 5 straight wins, only allowed more than 2 goals in one of them in that crazy game against the Washington Capitals. But we're talking about the 2 hottest teams in the league from the Western and Eastern Conference, the 2 hottest goaltenders in the league in Hellebuck and Sorokin. The under, I talked about it. We like to see action. We don't get it very often with some of these picks. I love the under 5.5 for the lock of the night.
Love it. Let's get it. Hey, I know I'm copping out a little bit with that tease to 6.5. I just don't want to get burned by an empty netter because I really do think this is going to come.
And that's so fair.
It's going to come down to the wire here, and I could see it being 4-2 type situation with that empty netter. So I'm going to take it up to 6.5 and count my chickens a little later.
And that's what we do on the podcast. Give you the best and favorite picks for every single night. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen. For your second listen, you got to make sure you check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your weekly matchups. If you're in the playoffs right now, even more luck to you as you continue to the championship round. We wish you good luck with your big-time bets tonight. Have a good weekend out there. Make sure you return back for the Saturday special, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Peace.